Hello, everyone. Jesse Lucas here again for another episode of Conscious Body Practices. Now, if you know anything about my work in embodied movement training, it is about getting to the fine little details, the functioning of your cells, the functioning of your emotional flow, your mind, through really simple things. In my world, it comes from the movement of the body, but there are other ways to access these, like your DNA, literally, how your genes function. This has been an interest of mine probably for the last 5 going on 6 years, and I've been looking at it from a little bit different of an angle through biohacking and nutrigenomics and using different food compounds to affect your genetic expression, really looking at how not only how we age, but how vital and vibrant are we. And when I started kind of digging further, I found the other people who were looking at this kind of stuff. And I found like the sister to that whole conversation is this conversation on epigenetics. And I am so excited to have, again, for the second time, we had so much to talk about. We had to do a few clips. Jen Gutfriend, who is going to talk, she's a hypnotherapist and mindset coach and happens to have an expertise in this area of epigenetics. So, Jen, dish, tell me what you got.
Thanks so much for having me. So, along with being the mindset coach and hypnotherapist, I'm also getting my psychology degree. And we talk about this even within the psychological community. And this is actually it's relatively new area of science, this epigenetics, because I don't know if anyone knows about, they call it the Human Genome Project. So, it's always been of this belief that we're made up of our genes, and our genes tell us what's going to happen to our body. So we hear about cancer being genetic and this issue being genetic and this being genetic. So scientists a few years ago decided we're going to do this human genome project, and we're going to map the entire genome of a human. When we do that, science is going to be done. We're going to know everything about the human body. We're going to be able to detect every disease. We're going to know who's going to get it, who's going to not. This is going to be wonderful. Problem was, that was quite the failure. So when they did this project, they realized that us as humans don't have many more genomes than a small earthworm. So they were like, okay, we're big human structures with big brains and all this is going on, but we don't have that many more genomes than this earthworm. So what's happening here? So they realized it wasn't about how many, it was about the expression of our genes. So as children, we're born with a genetic makeup, half from our mom, half from our dad. So our chromosomes are made up one of each. So people think that everything they get in life, it's genetic. Like, oh, I got rheumatoid arthritis because it's genetic. I got cancer because it's genetic. And the thing is less than 5% of mental and physical diseases are actually truly genetic. So we can think of those things like Huntington's disease is truly a genetic disease. If you carry the genes for that, you will get Huntington's disease. But things like rheumatoid arthritis and cancer, those are not truly genetic diseases. And that's what this epigenetics has started to uncover is, yes, we carry the genetic potential for a disease, but it's our outer world that helps us decide if we're going to express it. So it's that age-old fight in psychology of nature versus nurture. Nature being our genetics, nurture being our environment. And they're starting to see that it's actually more to do with the nurture than it is the nature. And if you watched my last video, I talked about how as children up to the age of 5, our minds work very simply. So we're more or less like sponges. We absorb everything we see, we hear. Anyone who has had children, you say a swear word and next thing you know, the child's using it, but they're using it in the right context. And that's because that's how children learn. They literally absorb in those first 5-6 years. And those first 5 or 6 years are also very important in the nature versus nurture because the child's brain and a person's brain is developing. So if a child grows up in a home that's unsafe, where they're not feeling loved and nurtured, where they don't have enough food, where maybe the dad's in and out of the picture, those things that we think of, oh, that poor child, like that's a rough home. When we think of those things, it doesn't just affect the child emotionally, it actually changes the structure in their brain. And this is a long term damage. So if we're negatively affecting the children, and this happens throughout life, teenage years, if something negative happens, like a divorce, if a parent dies, this is what causes those genes to express themselves. So they'll lay dormant these diseases for many years. My dad's a prime example. He supposedly carries the Crohn's gene, and it had laid dormant in him. And then when we moved provinces about 20 years ago, all of a sudden he started getting sick. My dad, who was this thin toothpick of a man, started gaining weight. He started getting bloated. All these things started happening to him. And here it was epigenetics, the stress from the move. He'd quit smoking, some big life changes that all happened. He was under so much stress in his body that this Crohn's gene that had been sitting dormant in his life goes, this is the perfect time. It expressed itself. He created this disease in his body. So I myself carry that gene for Crohn's, but it doesn't affect me because I don't let it. Because the thing with the epigenetics is it's all about allowing it. And this isn't just physical, this is mindset issues too. This is mental blocks. These are all, we all carry these genetic markers, but it's our choice whether we let them manifest or not.
That that example with your dad is such a clear example. I went to grad school about 10 years ago. It's 2010 to 2012. And one of the reasons I kind of put myself back there is I was looking at, I had already had almost a decade in personal training and teaching yoga. And I was seeing all of these bodies breaking down. I worked with athletes who, they were getting injured. Their injuries were slow to recover. I was working with younger people who I was seeing these health issues that I used to only see in older people. I'm older people now. That's why I have to put it in quotes, and rarely, and I was seeing them not rarely and in younger and younger people. And my brain was going like, I don't accept this. Like there's something, we have got to have some level of control here. So fast forward, plot myself back in grad school. And one of the things that I really looked at was looking at kind of tribal and Aboriginal cultures, kind of untouched people who were living really in harmony and community and in harmony with nature. So that stress level, they had their acute stresses, like got to get food, got to stay safe, got to keep shelter, but they didn't have that kind of chronic or that, that kind of hair trigger of like stress. We're going to push over that line. And they aged well. Those diseases, those conditions weren't present. They were agile, they were intelligent all the way, to very old ages. And I was like, that is what I believe our human experience is designed to be. So what happened where's the design flaw here? And I found exactly what you were saying, that it's kind of coming in from our environment, whether that's, the air quality, water quality, or emotional quality, all of it affecting. And I started to see, as a child in the 80s, so I learned in high school science, your genes are your genes. You get what you get. They're locked. There's nothing you can do about it. And fast forward to grad school, I'm learning they're on dimmer switches. And there are things that are in your control to control those dimmer switches. You just have to know how to do it. So the angle that I took has been more kind of dense between like certain food combinations or certain things, but it's that threshold, comparing you to your dad, that threshold of stress that can either knock you under to where those genes kind of do their thing, right, or keep you over that line where you have control over those switches. So tell us a little bit about from the angle of epigenetics versus something like other genomic things. What's one simple tool that someone right now, like with no other resources, can kind of just start to gain some control here?
Yeah, so like you were talking about, it's stress. So in psychology, we learned that the biggest thing that causes mental health issues and even physical health issues is stress. It's that physical stressors that cause us to become stressed because, as you said, our bodies are not meant to be under stress all the time. Our bodies have not evolved in a stress response in thousands of years. So we still have our caveman genetics that help us manage it. So when we become stressed, we go into fight or flight, which means we pull the resources away from our internal organs out to our outer body so that we can fight or flee. We've got that extra energy going out to them. And normally what happens is in the caveman days, we would run across a saber-toothed tiger. We would get into this fight or flight. We'd fight our way out. We'd run. We'd be safe. Our body would go back to homeostasis. Unfortunately, now we don't do that. Every little thing seems to trigger us. So driving to work, you get that road rage, someone cuts you off, and then you get to work and a coworker's, being difficult. So that stresses you out. So we become this constant state of stress. And that's the biggest issue with mental health issues and physical health issues is this constant state of stress. So in order to manage that, you have to learn to manage the stress and realize that things aren't so bad. And one tool I use with my clients that works amazing is anytime you feel your heart start to race, you feel stressed, you feel angry, just stop and breathe, because our breathing actually tricks our body into thinking we're calm. So all you got to do, I call it the 5-5-7 breath. So, breathe into the count of 5, hold for the count of 5, and then breathe out for the count of 7. And you only have to do that a couple times, and you're going to calm your whole nervous system down. You're going to take yourself out of fight or flight, and you're going to start seeing big changes, because that's why people are aging so much. This is why people have so much physical pain. I know myself, when I was in the worst part of my body, like my journey, my body literally started shutting down because I had stressed it out so much, and had got to a point where I didn't shut my stress response off, and it was going 24/7, and it literally was causing my entire body to shut down. So it was either you do something or you don't. And now all the physical pain, the brain fog, the mental issues, the depression, all those things are gone just by managing stress, by managing my mindset, and making these changes in my life. Simple, easy changes.
You are speaking my language right here. So in the other piece of work that I do with the embodied movement training, kind of blending my skills, my experience from both yoga and fitness, I absolutely love that when you have a tool, something like, we all hear this over and over and over again, just take a deep breath, just pause, take a few deep breaths. But when you can really kind of peel back the curtain and understand why that's so important, it's not just a little like placating thing, like, oh, it's okay, just wait a minute. But that, like you said, it's a direct hit to your nervous system that actually changes the biochemical flow that happens after that. So if you're in a stress response and you have that shallow breathing, that's telling your brain the one thing, and your brain is having that response and pumping out more of those stress hormones, the, adrenaline, cortisol, et cetera. When you take those deep breaths in that rhythm, I part of my training course is that as well, teaching certain kind of dialed in breaths to really tell the nervous system exactly what to do. It changes that whole biochemical flow. It changes the whole entire response that happens after that. So I think, what I want people to hear from you is that, this isn't just like, oh, if you think about it, then your gene switches will flip. No, but like with the mindset piece, it's a really practical angle, very practical angle to actually make some very actual changes going on. Awesome. I want to keep this short and sweet and digestible. So I am sure that people are hearing this and saying, I never heard of that before. I didn't know you could affect your genetic expression, that, genes can either be expressed or not. And there's decision, there's a playground in there where you can do it. Where can people find you to find out more about this?
So I'm on social media at Live Your Remarkable Life, and on Clubhouse at Mindset Coach Jen. So if you have any questions, you want to know more, feel free to reach out to me.
Awesome. Please do. She's a wealth of knowledge, this I know. And if you do want to hear about either, my angles from the movement piece or the nutrition piece, please reach out to me. Embodiedmovementtraining.com is my website. I've got a contact form here. If you're seeing this on social media, you can just click on my profile and find me there. Jen and I have more to talk about. You're going to get one more dose of Jen in the next episode. So please stay tuned for the next episode of Conscious Body Conversations. Jen, thank you so much. This is so rich. I appreciate your time, and thank you everyone for watching.